So today we're going to take a look at using Temporal's workflow orchestration to run a Salsa Level 3 pipeline over on GitHub using the GitHub Actions, Claude AI, as well as the GitHub MCP server. With all these tools, we'll be able to run the pipeline and have it orchestrated automatically by Temporal. So what we're going to do here is we're going to check in some code that has some linting errors. That will go ahead and run through our linter. We'll find that there's errors that need to be fixed, and then Temper will pass over to Claude the list of errors and the files that need to be fixed. Claude will fix those for us, and we'll create a pull request. After that, we'll then go ahead and take that pull request, merge it in, and run end to end. So let's go ahead and get started here. We're pushing our code up. Let me just go ahead and commit and do my git push. Okay, we got our push done. And we'll jump over to Temporal and our GitHub Actions here so we can watch what's happening. So we can see our run salsa pipeline has just started. This is the trigger that is going to be used to talk to Temporal. So this is actually going to trigger our Temporal client and we'll start running our Megalinter. So if I go ahead and refresh this side, we can see that the job has taken off. And if I scroll down, we can see where we are in the live monitor here. So if we go back to our actions, we have now two jobs running, the trigger job and then the Megalinter. Now, because I had a coding errors, this Megalinter is going to go ahead and return those errors. So this job here on the GitHub side will actually fail, but that's fine. We're going to catch those errors and then do our AI remediation as part of that. So now we can see that Megalinter has failed. So our workflow on the GitHub side has stopped. But if you look over on the Temporal side, we can see the remediation taking place. So we get our files with the lint errors. We analyze those files with Claude. We talk to the GitHub MCP to create a new branch. We push our files and we create our pull request. And then we mark that we have a failure as part of our process. So if I go over to our pull request now, we can see our auto fixed pull request. This was all generated by the Salsa pipeline through Temporal and the MCP servers. And if you look at our files that have changed, we have our linting errors fixed here. Now I'm going to go ahead and merge this now that the code looks all good to me. And we'll basically start the process again. So if we go back over to our actions, we can see that our run salsa pipeline has taken off again, but this time it's working against the new commit that I just merged. So as part of this path, we're going to do the Megalinter again, but this time it'll be successful. So then we're going to move on to build and push, signing, verifying, those type of things that we have to do to create a Salsa level 3 pipeline. So again, here we're at the Megalinter run stage, and this will be followed up by the build stage because we're going to have a successful linting this time. So if I go back over to our workflows, we have a new workflow that's running. And we can see that it's taken off. So we can see on the temporal side that the linting was successful. And now we're going to go ahead and execute the build. So the Megalinter this time has the green checkbox, good. Now we're doing our build and push. And this is happening because we're on the success pipeline, where earlier we're on the failed side of the pipeline. Now that the build has been completed, we're going to go ahead and do two other steps. We're going to sign the image with a cosign, and we're going to generate an SBOM. This is actually being done in parallel because these two things are independent of each other. So now that the SBOM has been generated and we sign the image, we can go ahead and scan that SBOM for vulnerabilities. This is another point where we can take another failure branch. So if we do find high or critical vulnerabilities, we can branch off, stop the pipeline, and go ahead and create issues to make sure that those high and critical vulnerabilities are resolved. We were all good, so we're actually just attesting the SBOM back to the Docker image. So basically the SBOM is embedded in the image along with everything being signed. And finally, we're going to verify all of our signatures. So just to ensure that nothing's been compromised throughout the pipeline, we go through and verify the Docker image, SBOM, all those signatures to ensure that everything is good to go for production. And this will finish up here in a second, and we'll have a complete successful run. And there we have it. We have our complete successful run all the way through. So just to recap, our first pass, we had those linting errors. We ran our pipeline orchestrated by Temporal. As part of that pipeline, the linting errors were found. We were able to take a remediation path that we talked to Claude, fixed those linting errors, recommitted, basically created a PR with those coding changes. And then after I reviewed the PR and I merged it, we started a second run of the pipeline again, this time walking through all the steps from the mega linting all the way through the end of verifying the signatures successfully. So how did we get there? How did we make all this happen? So basically there's two pieces that we have. The first piece is the orchestrator. So you can think of this as your pipeline steps. What is your pipeline going to look like? Let me scroll up to the top here. And the way I've written it is to use state transitions to determine the order of what things are going to happen in. Working along, everything's looking good. We don't have any linting, or if we don't have any linting errors, we can pick different paths. So there's what I call a set of presets to say I just want the minimal presets, just lint and build, or if I need to skip linting because it takes too long, I can pre-configure those presets. As part of the process, we can go ahead and inject different states into the process. So if we need to take a fixed path, we can inject that in there automatically. Again, this is based on state flows. So there is actually a state, what state are you at and what you need to run. So if we actually go look at this definition, this is basically our initialization, defining what we need to do. And then here's our linting step that we're working with. Now, what ends up happening is the linting step at the orchestration level then talks to the activity. So we're going to execute the activity run megalinter, and that's defined as other file. So if we look at run megalinter, this is where the heavy lifting happens. So in this case, we need to talk to GitHub that's doing all the heavy lifting for us. So we're actually using the GitHub APIs to figure out what workflows are running and how to kick workflows off and get the results back. So in this case, we kick the workflow off, and then we go and check for it to be completed. And then we come back and download basically the results of the megalinter. So megalinter, you can save all of its results as part of a JSON file. So we take that output and we merge it back into our result. Now, one of the things that the state mechanism that I'm using is we set it up so it depends on, so a particular workflow step depends on a previous step. And when we have that depends on, we can grab the results from those upstream activities that ran. So it makes it very nice to set up our workflows. So I can say, okay, I'm going to add a SCA tool into my pipeline. What is it dependent upon? Is it dependent upon linting? No, it probably is just dependent upon maybe the build. We need the build to complete. So I can set up these dependency relationships very easily without having to know who's dependent upon me. I know what my input is and where I need to gather it from. So it makes it very simple at that level. And also it'll handle the different paths because the state machine is set up to handle the auto injection of a new state. We can take the different paths as part of that process. So with that, I'll just wrap up and say thank you. If you have any questions, just reach out to me.